Hello, everyone. This is Lucious Talent. My name is Genesis, and today I'm here with Dujon Smith, founder and CEO of My BlockSkins. Dujon, introduce yourself to the people and tell us a little bit about yourself for the people who may not know about your brand.
Hello, hello. I'm Dujon Smith. As was mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of My BlockSkin, which is a new clear sunscreen gel that just launched to really disrupt the sun care industry and make it more inclusive for all skin tones and all skin types.
Yes, what problem were you trying to solve? Was it specifically for diversity, like the lack of inclusion when it came to other skincare brands?
Yeah, for me, it was really around dispelling misconceptions. I had seen a study from the American Dermatology Journal back in 2022 showing that Black men were dying from higher rates of skin cancer and melanoma. And it really inspired me to get into this space to, one, just better educate folks to say, hey, regardless of your skin tone, and especially if you are Black or brown, we still need sunscreen. We have a lot of these tropes: Black don't crack, Asian don't raisin. But any dermatologist will tell you, regardless of your skin tone, you should be wearing sunscreen to reduce your likelihood of getting skin cancer and melanoma. So that's really why I got into the space. And then parallel to that was really just around my own frustrations with formulations that had been out there, especially on the mineral sunscreen side. I would say education has started to catch up, but experience for a while, for a lot of years, was just not good. Like, people hated the white cast, and I hated it myself. That's why I never really liked wearing sunscreen growing up. So I created a clear sunscreen gel that goes on all skin tones. And I love it because at the end of the day, it's 2026. And even when I was launching the brand in 2023, I didn't want a product that was tinted, that still didn't blend in my skin tone, or one that left a white cast. I wanted it to be clear and invisible out the bottle. And that was my thesis. And that's what I think a lot of folks have been resonating with. And shout out to the other sun care brands that are out there that are moving in that direction or led the charge in that direction, whether it's Supergoop and Black Girl Sunscreen. But I wanted to continue to create more innovation and more options for the consumers that are out there.
That's beautiful. I think it's important for brands to start noticing. And like you said, it's 2026. Brands should obviously start making their product not just for one type of culture or one type of
Mhm.
standard. That's no longer the standard. What point of the business when you realize and had a realization that this product is actually going to become a company?
I think just having the opportunity to launch at Soho House Festival in London back in 2023, I had this idea in my mind. I had been working on it kind of in stealth mode for several months and told some close friends about it that, helped me host just product review sessions essentially and going through all the formulations that I was at. My buddy Will hosted like a little mimosas and product testing event for me at his crib. And just finally being able to launch the brand and having thousands of people at this festival try the product, interact with it, look at the packaging and the design and the formulation, it just made me realize that, look, I am solving something here and bringing something to market that people actually care about. I think fast forwarding from then, just getting some great feedback and even proof points like Mintel, they featured us in their 2025 Sun Care report, and seeing this legacy large like market research firm calling out my small indie brand as a step in the right direction in the sun care market for inclusivity, it made me realize, like, yeah, this is big. This is something that we should continue to fight after and build, even if it is capital intensive and it's hard to get investment out here. It made me realize that I'm stepping in the right direction. I got to keep this going.
What's the misconception that people get all the time about running a beauty brand?
I think that people think that it's easy, and it's not necessarily to have a products based business. I've been working my career in the last 10 years at Accenture in enterprise tech, in the last several years as an investor in that space. And I've just been so inundated with tech and tech investments. I think building a CPG business is very hard. It's so capital intensive. You need money for inventory. You got to think about all the regulatory environments that you're operating in, supply chain issues. Like, yes, as a tech company, you can get hacked, which can have obviously a lot of disruption to the business and have downtime. But then as a products business, if your product gets stolen, confiscated, pushed overseas because, it fell off a boat or whatever, like, that's a lot of money to lose out on. And kind of hurts a lot more than going back to the code base and making some updates. You know what I mean? Because the timeline is not always as immediate. Like in tech, you could probably go in, recode something, refactor something, and push it out in a day now, especially in the agentic era that we live in. But if you spend 45 days waiting for product to be developed and then it gets stolen, that's 45 days that you have to wait. There's no instantaneous nature here with the product business that I think a lot of technology companies have a slight advantage in this space. So I think that's a misconception. It's just when you are hit with craziness, whether economic regulations or tariffs or anything like that, it can really have a lasting effect on the business. It's slightly different from tech, I would say. So that's one misconception that I was like, oh, a product business, that's easy. I can just make some product and sell. It's not. It's not that easy.
What would you say was a huge struggle that almost took down the business? Like, it was a huge challenge for the business itself.
I would say last year, like literally, we had an opportunity to launch in 129 stores with a very large retailer in the UK and Ireland, and I was so happy about that. And then a week later, after we had launched in 129 stores, 90% of our product was stolen from the 3PL warehouse that we were housing our product in. So again, you can imagine you have to answer new purchase orders, and you have no inventory that you now have to wait on, and then the capital to refinance all of that inventory. It was just a huge struggle for us, to navigate. I mean, grateful that we came through. We had some more investors that came in that following summer that helped us to get back on track. I think that coupled with the tariffs that then got put into place with this current administration, like every possible negative headwind that could have knocked us over hit us, I would say, in 2025, from thefts to tariffs and everything in between. But again, I think that persistency, and just knowing that you are building something that needs to be out in the market and that people uh, are excited about just keeps you moving. And granted, things are better now in 2026. Now we're in 400 stores with our hero product, which is great. We just got a L'Oreal 2026 Inclusive Beauty Grant. Just won a few more competitions over the last couple weeks from Sango and the Black Girl Ventures Foundation. So that has definitely helped me to look back on 2025 and say, I'm glad I didn't give up, because if I did, these things would not have happened in 2026. But I think as a consumer and CPG founder, like theft and tariffs, those were the two T's that almost took me all the way out.
What would you say, like, was the pivotal moment where you thought, okay, we need to re-strategize our plan because this is happening? What were like the foundational movements that you already had that told you, listen, we need to change this and this is what we got to do and this is how we're going to approach it?
I think probably like the theft and the tariffs just made me rethink our supply chain and how we manage things. We took our warehousing and like fulfillment in house, to really focus on that from the ground up. Because coming from my background, I'm just used to outsourcing and focusing on my core competency. But then as a founder, I'm like, you really do need to understand your business from the ground up, and every margin, every cash, that is being outlaid, like where it's going and why. So in 2026, we just kind of rolled everything back in house and just figuring out how we truly build a sustainable business. I would say from an R&D perspective, one thing that has always been really important to me is how do we build and retain IP, intellectual property. So happy to bring on last year, after the theft and tariffs, my chief science officer, Jason Williams, who's a PhD candidate at UCLA, who'd been studying this space very well, who helped us then file a patent on a new mineral SPF platform. And that strategy, just thinking through how do we build a true IP moat as a beauty brand to allow us to stand the test of time, that even if things don't progress well with like D2C or wholesale and retail because of capital constraints, at least we're going to be developing some IP that could allow us to have a whole other business model where we're licensing this technology to other bigger companies that already have the size and the reach and the scale that will allow us to see our innovation commercialized in an effective way. But I think those are just some of the things when you're hit with those headwinds, you just rethink, okay, if I'm going to keep going, if I'm going to keep this afloat, what's something else new that I could do? What's another potential go-to-market strategy that I can bring into play that'll allow this to continue to sustain itself? And that's something that we're thinking. Yes, we got this D2C and wholesale, But what else can we do now that we have this additional IP, or, continuing to develop this IP that allows us other potential revenue streams?
What are some things that content creators could do that stand out to you as a founder that says this can help promote and market my brand?
I think, one thing that we're seeing now, with content creators, which is helpful, is just with reach. Everyone has their own curated audiences, and just as a new brand, or a newer brand that's trying to compete with the Sunbums and the Copper Tones of the world, you really just need as many eyeballs as possible. And I think that organic content that you can get from content creators who love your product, it is great. I think in the new model now, especially what we're seeing like with TikTok and affiliates, that's really helping compared to time in the past. Small brand might hear from a content creator like, "Oh yeah, we want to do a post and it's going to be 10K," and you pay a 10K and you just don't see any return on investment, depending on who it is, because maybe they didn't have the curated audience that that product really resonated with. So you have to be very careful with that. So I think content creation is key, but it's important when there's alignment and that there's actually trackable ROI. I do like the models now, especially with TikTok affiliates, where they get to play in the upside. They create content, and if that content moves the needle and actually sells product, they get a cut, which I think is great. I think it pulls out some ambiguity for especially early stage founders who are like, if I only have $2,000 to put into marketing, should I pay $2,000 to this one person that I have no guarantee? Or there's 300 people who are going to create content for me for free. And then if that turns into sales, everybody's eating. I think it all depends, obviously, on the content creator, who they are, what their size and scale is. But I do like this newer model where brands and content creators can both share in the upside with minimal risk on the upfront side, because it's not like it doesn't cost anyone that much to create the piece of content if they do like the product. And, the minimal cost that it costs the brand to at least just send the product to someone for free. But if that piece of content does extremely well, at least both sides are transparently making or participating in the economic upside, as I've heard from a good friend of mine.
What are some of the achievements y'all guys have achieved so far? I know y'all guys won the Black Beauty Venture. I saw it. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, that was probably the most recent thing. Shout out to Black Girl Ventures. We got the first place prize in their pull up and pitch event, that happened in New York this past Saturday. It was announced, at the end of June, that we got the 2026 L'Oreal NAACP Inclusive Beauty Fund grant. We got the Sango first place and audience choice prize for their June pitch competition. So it's been really excited to see that. We recently got accepted into the Magnify Incubator, which is funded by the California Nanosystems Institute at UCLA, where we're going to be commercializing the patent that we just filed earlier this year. So it's been a good journey, I would say, in 2026, from filing that patent in January 2nd of 2026 until now. Looking back over the last 6 months, I would say there's been a lot of momentum, getting an investment from Level Up Ventures and and their program with Shopline. And I'm just excited around what's going to happen over the next 6 months of 2026 and beyond.
Yes, no, that sounds incredible. What are some challenges that you're having when it comes to products or the brand itself?
I would say the only problems now, like, our product is great. I think it's just navigating the regulatory, as new UV filters are now being approved here in the US, which is great for consumers to get some more options. I think the only challenge that I'm facing just overall is just access to good capital for a business of our size and scale. I always see now, especially on the venture capital side, you know, good VC or VCs and consumer, they'll come in after you already hit a million or 5 million in sales. But then you do read of investors who put in money pre-revenue and pre-product. And I think just as a CPG founder, it's hard to find that middle scape if you don't have the relationships and the community and the connections in that point. Because if you can't find those investors that invest pre-revenue, then you got to wait till you get to this other big milestone. But if you don't have the capital to get you to that milestone, it's like you'll never have an opportunity to access that. And I think that's the hard part, is just managing how do you build the business organically to a size and scale that could be attractive to those individuals, when you constantly may read about founders that were able to do that because they already had 2 or 3 million in funding from the jump. But, I know everyone's story is different, but that for me, I would say is probably the challenge. just over the last couple of years and being able to test out the product with thousands of people through sampling events and other brand partnerships, I know we have something that is good and that is needed. I just think it needs more eyeballs on it. And everyone says, sometimes it's a numbers game. If you have enough money to invest in the Meta ads platform or TikTok ads, that can happen quickly. Or if you just have that right person that has that huge organic reach that can, you know, fall in love with the brand to help. But it's really like a grassroots efforts. But balancing a grassroots efforts with something that while you're building true IP, it can be hard because you want to move fast before someone else picks up on what you've done and you're just running into like this sort of execution and timing thing. So that's what I would say is the struggle. If I had the capital that I needed, like right now, how much further could I get than doing the cheap and cheerful route of what we've been bootstrapping thus far?
What would you say is like your favorite beauty product?
Outside of my product, outside of wearing sunscreen, I've been loving this face wash from Apostle. They're a great brand that I met the founders out in Target a couple weeks ago. Amazing brand. I love their face wash. It's so good, and they have this great under eye cream, which is really wonderful. And then I love shea butter from Hana Hana Beauty. They have some really, really great scents, amber vanilla. But my favorite one that I just got recently at the Beauty on Block event that I met you at is a coconut bamboo. That one smells so freaking good, and I love putting that on my skin before or after my sunscreen when I'm moving around. But I would say the Apostle face wash, which I love, and their under eye cream, and then my Hana Hana shea butter.
What's some advice that you would give to founders in the beauty space, fashion space, just in space where attention is very important and marketing is very important?
Yeah, I would say one, invest early into your brand identity. I think that was very important for me. That was like one of the first things I spent money on was just our packaging design and aesthetic. And I think when you invest early in your brand identity, it can really allow you to do some really exciting things. Like we got to partner with Soho House and LVMH with their Veuve Clicquot Polo Classic and Good American and Burton Snowboarding. Like our logo and our product and our packaging looks good with a lot of these legacy brands and entities. So I think if you're starting anything, especially in the CPG space, fashion, anything like that, like invest early in your brand identity, your logo, your packaging, all of that stuff. Because as you're trying to attract eyeballs, to your point, attention, and content creators, they're going to be looking at those visual assets that you've developed. And I think that's something that has helped us a lot is that people look at the brand, they're like, ooh, this looks good. This looks interesting. I want to like dive in a bit more. And then they try the product and then they're like, this is great. So I think, the first thing that people see, whether that is out in real life or on social media is your brand aesthetic and that identity and your visual identity. So in anything that you do, invest in that early and often. And obviously I hired someone to actually do this. Now, if you can't hire someone or you don't have the capital, especially in 2026, I did this was back in 2023. There are plenty of tools out there, all of these LLMs that are doing image and ad generation and brand identity. Like you can start using those things to get you maybe 50% of the way there. Then I would still hire a human, an individual, a graphic designer, a packaging designer to level it to the next space. So you really have that human tech ingenuity there together. Because I think it's both important. I don't think one replaces the other. They enhance one another when they're working in concert. So that's the main piece of the advice I would say. One, obviously go for it. If you have an idea, bring it to fruition. But two, invest early in your brand identity, your visual identity, and your aesthetic, because that's what's going to attract the capital, the content creators, and the community.
Thank you so much, Dujon. Any last words do you have for the audience?
Go out there, support your fellow entrepreneur that you might see in your hood, your community, in your circle. I would say that's the one thing that we can do as a community of people is support our local entrepreneurs and our local small businesses because that's what's really driving the economy. And, when you sit at that intersection, whether it's culture and community and product design and science, like the main thing that we can do to continue to drive that innovation forward is to support these small local businesses that are out there. So if you know anybody, go buy their product, go support them in any way that you can.
Thank you, Dujon, for being here. It was a pleasure to see you again. Um,
Awesome.
can't wait to see more about My BlockSkin.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.